Good evening, everyone. Another episode of Unheralded Heroes, and today we've gone across the Atlantic to Mr. Adam Allred. Man, this feels extraordinaire. I saw him on Instagram a few months ago, and he was giving, the tonic masculinity, like I would like to say. He's giving the great examples of it, how it helps men and boys achieve their potential. And I've invited him on today to discuss all things around the manosphere, traditional feminism, and where we're going wrong in terms of the gender relations. So, Mr. Allred, what can you say?
Sean,
How has your journey been from to this level? That this
well, Sean, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, man. And I'm excited to be talking to another brother from across the pond on the other side, man. Sounds like we're kind of dealing with a lot of the same issues.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely.
It's a crazy world we're in right now. It's all upside down.
So, for the benefit of the viewers, could you tell us how you arrived to this situation from as a man, from boy to manhood?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast not that long ago, and the guy was on the podcast. He was saying Western men never actually really become men. They never understand women until they go through a divorce first. And I'm not sure that's entirely true, but it rang true on some levels that we as men, we get conditioned with the worst kind of programming. We're told to pedestalize women. We're told that, it's our job to make them happy. We
Mhm.
get fed all of these frameworks and these ideas and strategies that just don't work. And so I'm the product of that. I went through a divorce after 8.5 years of marriage. The marriage was absolutely horrific from start to finish in terms of our ability to like make that work and connect and get on the same page. And I went through that marriage really, really mad about a lot of things because I felt like I was doing everything right. I was playing the script that I'd been told to play. I was doing everything I was told by society, by my parents, by church. This is how you're supposed to act in a marriage. And I did all that, and it didn't work. And so going through the divorce for a while, I was kind of playing that victim card, just feeling sorry for myself and angry at God and angry at life and angry at this and that, feeling like a failure. And what I realized was it wasn't God's fault. It wasn't that women's fault even. It was me as a man, first of all, not knowing how to pick the right person, not understanding what a marriage takes and how to run that the right way and what type of person you need to find to make a marriage work. And so, I started questioning all of the things that I had been taught my whole life, all the sacred cows in my life started getting put on the table, and I started examining it and saying, hey, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I stopped saying this should have and shouldn't have. Instead, I said, what does work and what doesn't work? And
Mhm.
I started to like learn things really, really fast. I started to observe things really quickly and started to apply them. And it started making my life better. And I realized there were so many men in the same boat as me. Yeah, as men were on islands. When I was in that marriage, I didn't have any guys that I was talking to about it because part of the conditioning is when you get married, you give up your friends. Your friends are disposable. And my ex-wife saw my friends as a threat. And so I didn't have
Yeah.
guys around me to, resonate with, share the journey with, to like get, have as a sounding board. And I started observing this stuff post divorce, and I started seeing so many guys going through the same thing. I had guys reaching out to me, buddies of mine, associates of buddies of mine who were in the same kind of situation I was in, and in the same framework, like, hey, I'm trying to do all this, it's not working. And so I started making social media content to speak to those guys. I didn't expect it to become big. I had no intentions of being quote unquote an influencer or some sort of guy recognized in the masculine space as being the guy to talk about this stuff. I was just trying to share things that I thought might help somebody else that I was learning. And excuse me, my fifth or sixth reel that I put up, I was just editing it myself, just popping up a camera, doing the
Mhm.
little editing thing. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just throwing stuff up there. If I get three or four likes,
It's
you
about the
know,
deeds. As long as you're doing the work, that's the main thing. The
I
skill
was
comes
doing it,
later.
man. I was just like trying to throw stuff up there. And I was like, man, if there's a couple guys that like this, then it's good. There's two people that got some value out of this.
Yeah, good.
And my fifth reel that I made or sixth reel, it went like 2 million views. It just blew up. And I was totally surprised. And then I had like 10,000 followers almost overnight. And guys were asking me questions and women were asking me questions. And it's been a really fascinating journey for the last couple of years. I've been doing this for about 3 years now, making content, and my page has grown pretty significantly. What's interesting to me is that almost half of my followers on Meta are females.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I'm a guy talking to guys, talking about guy stuff. Sometimes the things I say about women aren't that flattering. I try to be honest. I'm not on a witch hunt. I love women. The
Mm,
most beautiful, awesome, incredible people I know in this world are women. My mom,
of
my wife
course, of
now.
course.
Yeah, so it's not anti-women, but I call out the bullshit, and I do it against men too. I call out our own bullshit.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
got
you have to
house
for the
phone.
balance.
Exactly. I'm not on a witch hunt, but I'm not also not trying to be flattering or trying to, put on my happy face about this stuff. I'm just trying to call it like I see it. And it's been really encouraging to see how many men and how many women this message is resonating with right now.
Yeah, dude, because from where I come from, don't know how it is where you are. A lot of the when they do the kind of secret surveys where it's anonymous, they told you. Even a book I read called The Empathy Gap by Will Collins tells you most women still see us as the breadwinner, the protector, and they expect us to be like that. And it was like 57% to 43. And I said, so why this voice not more prominent in the media? And when I spoke to a few of them that, like you said, support me and what I'm doing, they're like, well, Sean, I don't want to be seen as a sellout. I don't want to be seen as someone that's got no internal preference and that or internalized misogyny or, pushed out in like, their girl circles. So a lot of them they want to be silent. The men, they said, look, at work, human resources see any of this kind of stuff online, Sean, or talking about male abuse and things like this. Said I'll be sacked. They're manageable, not sacked, but managed out by the process. They start nitpicking. Oh, he's 5 minutes late today. What time did he come back for lunch? Stuff like that. So a lot of them were frightened to speak up, but I have to admit, since about, because I've been doing it quite a while, to be fair, but not so much with the social media stuff, but like in the activism and like community work in real life. And they said, oh, Sean, if you lot don't come out from behind the scenes, how will anyone know what's going on? So there was only a few of us that was courageous enough to say, look, this is what's going on. But then I saw the movement was actually hijacked by, the quote unquote, the alpha males of the manosphere, the normal names in Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, um, HSS to TikToky,
Yep.
Myron Gaines. Because to be fair, enjoying lockdown in the COVID pandemic, one of my friends, I used to be support worker at the YMCA. He said, "Oh, Sean, what do you think about this?" Because obviously he was disgruntled about the kind of relationships he was having with women, and he was disgruntled. So he identified with it for a few months while we were in lockdown. But then after a while, I said, "You know what, Sean? You're right. They're not that good. They're unbalanced, and they're just making an example of women to say, look, they're less than." So he said, yeah, I want to get involved in what you're doing. So we got a panel together, and then we started to actually put the stuff that we was doing, showcase it online. So it's key because a lot of them, like you said, if they come out and say, listen, we support men and we need more traditional men and more masculine men, and they'd be like, oh, why would you want to do that? Because it's toxic. They just want to dominate and subjugate us. We're under patriarchal control, so we get all this kind of malarkey all the time.
Yeah, we see a ton of it over here. I think the pendulum is starting to shift, at least in my
Mm,
algorithm. So it's hard to tell how indicative it is in the culture abroad. But there are, which is also very encouraging. There are so many women that are showing up in my feed on social media that are calling out women's bad behavior, which I have never, ever in my life ever seen before. My experience when I observe women in their circles, whether it's friends or, mothers and daughters, sisters, is they just validate each other. They never ever tell each other the truth.
mm.
Ever, ever. And now I'm seeing it. I'm seeing a lot of women telling other women the truth. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
this is good. The pendulum is starting to shift because I think women are waking up and they're realizing we're not happy.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
this isn't working. And no
Hmm,
matter how
hmm.
much someone keeps telling me I need to be happy being a boss babe that can go to work and take care of everything and do everything. And they're getting older and they pass up their best years. They've passed up a
Mm,
lot of them to have kids. They're 40 years old with a couple of cats and a couple of Gucci bags, and they realize, hey, this
mm.
isn't this
It's
isn't
not
all it
fulfilling.
be. Yeah, you can only have so many martinis on the beach with your
Mm,
girlfriends before you're like, this gets pretty dang old. And you
mm.
realize, this whole family thing and the masculine energy with the feminine energy, maybe that's a good thing. And I think a lot of women are realizing they were sold lemons and they're starting to wake up. And that's really encouraging.
Yeah, and they're definitely becoming more courageous. They're definitely becoming more courageous. Because I showed actually a church sermon from the island where my grandparents are from, Jamaica, and there's a female preacher saying about kind of like man a man. and then she's going through the list of why she likes men that make decisions, that act like men, that work like men, that take action. They do DIY. They know how to do certain things around their car. You know, they're not indecisive, and they're like a lot of them resonated. They were banging the tambourine and catching the Holy Spirit and all this. I said, see. So a lot of the women were laughing, said, "Yeah, we want that because we don't want any jellyback men." So it basically,
No,
spineless.
no woman wants that. Like
Yeah, see,
here's the
exactly.
reality.
That's what I was saying.
There's not a single woman on the planet that is biologically attracted to a weak man. And yet they keep getting told, the women and men, that a man should be weak, he should be passive, he should be harmless, and he should do everything the woman wants him to do. And
Mm,
basically, like put her on a pedestal. And none of those women are attracted to those men. They might tolerate them, they might
mm.
even love them to some extent
Just
or
them.
another. They might even like him, but they don't respect him. And a woman cannot be sexually attracted to a man she doesn't respect. She just
There
can't.
you go.
And the only thing a woman's going to respect is strength, just period. Like that's the only thing women expect respect is strength. Now, I'm not talking, I like how you term tonic masculinity versus toxic masculinity. I'm not talking about a guy who comes home and dominates his wife and tells her what to do. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying a man that's competent, a man that knows how to lead, that she can trust to take the lead, a man who knows how to get shit done, like a man who takes care of himself, a man who's leveling up. The most attractive thing that I've ever seen for women to men, like I observed this in my own experiences with women dating and being married twice now. I've observed this in social circles. The most attractive energy for a woman is when she sees a man kicking ass at life. Like he's whatever that is, whatever he's doing. Maybe he's an engineer, maybe he's a dentist. He's going out, he's taking care of himself. He knows who he is, he knows what he's trying to accomplish.
Secure,
It's the most
secure in himself.
he's the most that's the most attractive energy for a woman. It just draws a woman into that field. But what happens, I think, so often is women they're attracted to that, and then because of all this toxic bullshit that's been filled into their heads, they start feeling like they have to neuter that. They have to cut that down a little bit to make themselves feel good, to make themselves feel safer. If he's not as attractive, then I don't have to worry about losing him. So she starts trying to to neuter the man, and as soon as the man starts to do that, and as men, we're wired to sacrifice for our family. We're wired to
You're
sacrifice
right,
for
it's like a person,
love. And so we're kind of pre-programmed to start to do that. As soon as a man starts cutting off his wings, all the things that made him attractive to begin with,
It's
to
gone.
try and make her happy in whatever
Happy.
state she happens to be in, she immediately loses respect for him. She immediately loses attraction for him because fundamentally, that man has lost respect for himself. As
Self.
soon as he starts trading his identity, his principles, his standards, his purpose for the preference of a woman, he is no longer a man. He's no longer a man. He's something else. He's a male, but he's not a man. He's not stepping into that
I
space
agree.
anymore. He's not
I
attracted
agree.
to himself. He's not attracted to her.
The serious thing. So how would you resolve it? Say if you became president of the United States, and if I became the Prime Minister of England, what would you do in terms of social policy and like communications comes to the general public? Because the message is en masse at the moment. That's all I see online and in legacy media.
No, there's a couple of things right out the gates. I think first I'd start with kids. I would change the education system for boys, particularly. I think it needs to change for women and girls public education, but particularly for boys. Boys come out of the womb pre-programmed to be rough, to be tumble, to be aggressive, to be competitive. They want to go out and explore the world. They want to catch freaking grasshoppers and they want to play
Mm,
sports and they want to play video games. They want to hang out with their buddies. And I would fundamentally change the way that we educate boys from having them sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, listening to a lecture, usually from a woman that they're not interested in, as far as the
mm,
lecture. Um, I would change it completely. I would get boys outside more. I'd be getting them competitive, more, doing more sports, doing more activities, getting them tired, having them do things that they're actually interested in, and teaching them that all the qualities that make them what they are, a boy, are good. They
Of
need to be
course.
controlled and they need to be managed, and you got to learn how to rein that in and how to funnel it and channel that energy. I'm not saying chaos. I'm not just saying let them run all over the place and do whatever they want, but taking them to do things that they actually are interested in doing so that we stop neutering these boys in school. Because right now, a kid that doesn't want to sit still for 8 hours a day, surprise, surprise, no boy wants to, or most don't. If they don't want to, we call them a problem child. They get in trouble, they get detention,
ADHD. Mm,
suspended, or we medicate them into submission and we just hop them up on pills for the rest of their life. And so I would fundamentally change that. The other thing I would do with men is I would take away a lot of the I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the US, the family courts, the divorce courts are absolutely toxic. They are stacked against men. The system is
Mm,
completely unfair. The man is left holding the entire responsibility for a separation financially. And this, I think, incentivizes women to leave. 70% of women are the ones that instigate divorce in the US right now.
that's
70%
it.
of divorces are instigated by women. And part of that is due to the fact that women have no financial accountability in this. They can leave the man, take half of the shit that he's worked his whole life for, and then live off of his alimony and child support. And so they
Mm,
have a strong financial incentive to leave if they're not satisfied. And I'm not saying that's why every divorce happens, but it's certainly why a lot of divorces happen. On the divorce records, court records, the majority of divorces instigated by women are not because of abuse and they're not because of infidelity. They're because the woman is no longer satisfied anymore.
mm.
And I'm not saying men don't have a role to play to step in, but up in that they do. But
We do, yeah, we do.
but when she can leave and have no financial skin in the game and take everything, it's
Mm,
just set
yeah,
up
it's
well.
diabolical.
And
Yeah,
then
of course, unbalanced.
it's super imbalanced. And then what happens is she ends up raising the kids generally because the man has to work now to pay for two households. So he's on the hook for figuring out where he's going to live now. She usually takes the house. He has to figure out how to pay her. And so he doesn't have the time to spend with the kids. So these
He's
boys are being
alienated from his
raised with
children.
single moms. And there's a lot of great single moms out there doing the best they can. A lot of them, it's not their fault that they're a single mom. They had to do what they had to do in a toxic relationship with a bad guy. I get it. But we are having boys right now raised by women. They're raised by a single mom generally, and then they roll into a school system that the authority figure is generally a woman, and they're constantly being taught how to be nice, how to validate,
And
how
minimize
to be
themselves.
harmless, how to
Yeah.
be polite. All the qualities again that make them a boy are seen as bad, and
Mm,
they're told by women, the women authority figures in their life, that they need to stop being like a boy. And then when they become an adult, they have no idea what it means to be a man, and they're looking essentially for a mother to replace the mother of their youth, a woman,
mm,
a woman to give them purpose, a woman to tell them what to do,
mm,
a woman to tell them everything's going to be okay. And
mm.
this is not attractive to anybody. To me, this is the biggest threat that we have in Western society is the weakening and watering down of
Yeah, of
masculinity.
course, because it affects the resilience. I noticed the mental strength is affected because they're always looking to be saved and bailed out by their partner. And then obviously the women said, well, why have I got a partner then? Why do I have a husband or a man if this is you're just going to be another burden or like having another child? So that's
Exactly.
what I told him. I said, I know because of the aggression and our propensity for violence. I said, I can understand the fear, but I said, we can't be in control of your fear. We cannot be in control of our own. And I said, most men that are disciplined or have some kind of purpose are usually not like that.
No,
I always tell them, I said, if it was that bad, how obviously the radical feminists say online and, the guy in the centric men, they said, if it was that bad, there wouldn't be so many women on the planet. If it comes to this, women are dying. So that's a lie. It's like the other day I had to show one of them about we got a survey called the Crime Survey for England and Wales. And said it shows you since I was a teenager in the 90s, violent crime has dropped by 40% nearly. 39.5, roughly about that. Yeah, so I said, so how is it that we're still saying that men are like this? This is not like the Victorian era when Emily Pankhurst was burning her bras. It's not like that. He said, there's no better time to be a female than in today's society. So I said, when you're still trying to do these archetypes about the bygone era, we don't live in a time warp. He said, the reality is it's much better now. Infant mortality, death in childbirth, which they keep trying to make up recently, this has been another big thing. Said that's
mm,
not the case at all. That's not the case at all. So I don't know if it's like careerists trying to make it, hype up the fear machine to keep, the position how it is. Or there's ones that said, you know what, because of the historical injustices, what we done before we had, like the welfare state and, domestic abuse laws and, you know, women that used to not be married, they would be cast aside and the children were declared as bastards because they said, oh, we don't know, should ensure paternity. So I said, I know the welfare state was just to stop that women fall into poverty for men that were reckless. They said, you know what, I don't want to take care of my responsibilities. But said again, the balance is off and you keep talking about historical injustices that are not apparent today. I said even in the STEM subjects, I said there's more women now in the science, technology, engineering than there are men. There's more graduates from university than there are men. So I said suicide rates among men are much higher, and usually due to homelessness and relationship breakdown, even when there isn't a marriage. So, and there's no in the UK, there's no housing law, especially that, as you know, men you don't usually have the children; they're not usually the resident parent. They said because of that, under the housing law, they're not a priority for public housing, social housing. So if they don't earn enough to rent on their own in an economy that needs two incomes these days, unless you're earning above six figures, where's their recourse for social justice? He said it's not there. And then you're telling them to smile and get on with it, and don't air your frustrations because you might be seen as too violent or aggressive. It's bad. It's bad. And over here, you're right. The most of the primary education teachers are female. And I said, that's the next thing that I'm like you. I said, look, there needs to be a bit of balance. When I was going to school, it wasn't exactly, 50-50. But I said you had a much more male presence in the school system, and it's been diminished since the 90s. It's gone, it's less and less and less. And some of them say, well, it's the career, Sean. Some of them don't want the career. And to be labeled like, they might be molesting underage students or taking advantage of their position. Or some say there's not enough money in it. So why would I go and do a career like that? And when they work in construction, I said, yeah, that's true, but you incentivize it then, isn't it? Just like we incentivize women to come into the army in construction, the positive discrimination, like the Rooney Law, I guess, that what you have when it comes to ethnicity, said if we have something like that, then you'll incentivize more men will come to the profession. So that's the way how you change it when they got that stigma and culture, like, oh, I don't want to be involved in that because of my risk of being accused of being a molester or being too aggressive, and then the women ruin my reputation through gossip and false allegations. Mm,
There's so much of that that's going on right now. So men are checked out because men are told by culture and society and by women that they're bad. And there's not a lot of incentive for them to step up because, what guy wants to get into what rational person on the planet wants to partner up with somebody where there's a 70% chance that person is going to leave,
mm,
or not 70%. You have in the States, we have about a little over 50% divorce rate. So
mm,
you got about you got you're more likely to have this marriage end in a divorce than not. And 70% of those divorces are going to be instigated by the woman. And
mm,
the man is going to be the one ending up being financially responsible for all of it, generally speaking. Statistically speaking, the man
mm.
ends up being,
Of
like
course.
97% of all alimony is paid by men.
Mm,
Um, who's going to sign up for that? Where there's no checks and balances, and where he's going
mm.
to get into a marriage. And let's be honest, like there's a lot of reasons to get into a marriage. And in my opinion, the most important one is for children, like to
Mm.
create children and create stability for children. But every marriage is an exchange. It is. We try to pretend like it's like some sort of Hollywood happily ever after
No,
scenario.
Disney, yeah, it's not Walt Disney. No.
It's not. There's an exchange of value. Like you need to bring both people, the feminine and the masculine, need to bring some value to that relationship for it to make sense at the inception. And the value for a man, one of the primary values for a man is that he's going to have a woman that respects him. He's going to have a woman that gives him peace when he gets home from a hard day of work. She's going to be there to like kind of put him back together. And he needs a woman that's going to provide physical intimacy for him.
Mm,
Those are kind of like the three big things that a man is looking for outside of the being a father and taking care of children. He's
mm.
going to look for respect, he's going to look for peace, and he's going to look for physical intimacy. These are kind of the three big ones for most
Of
men, in my
course. Mm,
right? And a woman's generally looking for safety. She's looking for a guy who can provide and take care of stuff, who can provide and protect and lead. Like that's kind of the main things that women are generally looking for. And there's a lot of other ancillary things to this, but I think those are kind of the fundamental ones. Men aren't getting that right now with Western women. They're
mm.
not getting respect, they're not getting peace, and they're getting cut off from physical intimacy. They get women that just won't even engage with them sexually that they're married to. And then these women are offended and shocked and horrified when that man starts looking for other, he's interested in
Yeah,
other
but
women.
yeah. To be fair, fun enough, I went on a podcast the other day with two female influencers from my community, and we was going back and forth about this. Even though we get along, they were like, "Sean, I know that you try to be balanced, but you're still biased towards men." I said, "Obviously, I'm male, and there's inherent concerns about what's going on." But I said, "Obviously, I've got a daughter, I've got a sister, I've got a mother." So I said, I try to keep it as balanced as possible, but there's no way that you can sweep over the fact that there's not enough balance in terms of men and women. Social policy, housing law, the family courts, as you said. Even medical care, there's less money spent in research of male illnesses, like say, for instance, prostate cancer compared to breast cancer. I said there's not that empathy. He said, look, I used to work in Meta, fun enough. I said, and when I was in there, what, 3 years ago, and they had International Women's Day, I said, oh, that's good. Are we going to do International Men's Day when I've been there for about 3 or 4 months? I said, what? Is there even an International Men's Day? That's what they said to me. And then my technical supervisor said, Sean, don't mention that in there because you're in your probation still. Yeah, the facilities manager took a dislike to it and then started to, do the whispering campaign. So about 4 months later, I just left. I left for another job. But yeah, it's serious. Yeah, they had all the conferences of where we were in Warren Street in central London, where they're all about, feminist agenda, the UN, or why there's, um, and not just International Women's Day. They had another one about the violence against women and girls, things like that. Women in tech, how there's still prejudice and obviously sexual assault and things like that. I said obviously these things go on, but don't you think that you trump up about those issues more than how serious than they are in the actual reality? I said think about it. Oh, what would you know? So we're up against it. We're up against it. So, like you said, all we can do is call out the men for the misdeeds, which I do. I said, look, we got to be more responsible. We have to be more serious. We have to be more consistent, stable. Yeah, if we make promises, we must keep them, especially when it comes to the people that we're supposed to love. Yeah, we're supposed to be driven and have a focus and purpose and a good work ethic. These are natural things. Obviously, take care of yourself so they, like you said, they don't lose attraction to you. But then some, as you know, you can do that sometimes, and it still doesn't work. Especially Rove and I, in a world of social media where you got so many options at the click of a button. I think that's a big problem with it as well. The where before the internet and things like that, you might have. I used to see the lonely hearts in the back of the newspapers, things like that. But you would never be able to connect to someone like I've connected with you today over the internet. Said, "Oh, how are you doing?" Zoom calls, things like that. Oh, you should fly over. People are more now where they can take going to abroad is a lot easier than it was before.
Hmm.
So I think that's a big part to play in it as well. And
Yeah, I think a lot
desire
of
for
high
more.
caliber men are like totally checked out. They're going to just get as many women as they can. They're going to get as much physical intimacy as they can, and they have plenty of options. And then you have guys that aren't as attractive to women. They haven't developed themselves. They haven't built themselves
Mm,
up because they feel like they're left out of
mm,
the whole game.
mm,
Because like you look at these stats on, like, for example, dating apps. 10% of the men get 90% of the attention from women. So you got
mm,
90% of men. I can't remember what it was. It was some astronomical number. They had to swipe right, meaning they were interested, something like 500 times to get one coffee date. And most of the time that date would stand them up. It was insane. So this is the
Jesus.
majority of men in the dating world. They don't get attention from women. And you have all the other women that feel entitled to, she can be 400 pounds, doing nothing with her life, you
Yeah.
know, eating her donuts, drinking her
Yeah, of course.
latte.
Inherent
And
value.
and then she's like, I need a 6 foot man, 6 foot plus man with six
Mm,
figure income, blah, blah,
mm,
blah. I'm entitled to
mm,
that. And these women are so delusional, they feel like they're entitled to know everything without having to offer anything. And you have all these guys that are checked out, and now they're clicking, they're going to porn. I'm not saying this is a good thing, this is a really bad thing for men, but they're taking the easy way out because the deck is so stacked against them right now in our society that what other options do they really have? They can go be a monk, and live in some
mm,
monastery somewhere, or
mm,
they've got to, they're just trying to figure out how to get through this stretch. So they're clicking on porn, they're playing video games, they're doing things that are not progressing their life, but give them some sense of validation. I completely checked out of this. So this is horrible for women. They've kind of, and we've allowed them to do this, but they've dug their own grave on this. And now with robots coming out
Yeah, of
and
course. Yeah,
with
Jesus. Yeah. I told people
intimate,
that years ago.
yeah,
But there's films about it now. I saw one the other day. What was it called? Subservience with not Kate Perry. What was her name? Megan Fox. I said, my word, I said, if it ever gets to that level, you'll see a lot more people will have robotic companions, cyborgs. Yeah.
for sure. If your robot companion can look like Megan Fox, and when you come home from work, she's got dinner waiting for you. She's wearing
Never gets
nothing but a
tired, never
smile.
upset.
She's telling you how amazing you are. You're so cool. Thanks for taking care of stuff. What dude is gonna like trade that to try and get into this freaking quagmire that's the dating world, modern dating world for men in the
Well,
West?
to be fair, the women have been saying that we too will, someone that is stable, never gets irritable with them. Yeah, always goes to work better at complaining, don't require anything. If they turn around and say, I don't want to have sex with you, then it's fine because they're not emotionally upset about it. So the
Yeah,
women
we're
will do that
cooked.
as well. I'm telling you, women will
The
do
human
that.
species, we're cooked, bro.
It'd
It's
be
game over,
terrible.
dude.
That'd be the end of
As
us.
soon as they have sex robots, or in this case for women, what it would be like emotionally validating robots, like they just listen to them and validate everything they have to say, and just
We'll be in trouble.
watch chick flicks with them every night. Like that's we're not making any more humans, dude. We're just gonna like erase ourselves with robots.
But what I find odd is the way the term, obviously the insults, incel, he's a waste of space. He's not masculine. But you talk about incels, about them eventually celibate, but what do you want them to do then? Because if they go out there and use, professional services, you tell them they're weird and they're a pagan. Where's the morality? But I said, yet most those workers are female again. So from the dawn of time, that always a market for that services. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be put on a pedestal and with the halo effects and you're holier than now, you're so precious and holy, and then you're kind of advocating that in the same breath. That said, oh, that's fine if we want to do that. We have control and autonomy. So just like men can have control and autonomy where they go elsewhere, or they seek freedom outside of the female influence. It said if you start doing that, all it does then is you're bucking heads and there's no alignment, there's no unity. And so then the female and male relationship is the most important on planet Earth. Otherwise, we won't survive the next 100 years. So we've got to be better with that. But the politics around it, especially the legacy media, sometimes I wonder if it's by design because some of the divide and conquer tactics I've seen this before in the past, very colonial. They said,
Oh,
"Oh,
it's
we don't."
it's 100% by design. It
Mm,
is a
mm,
hundred percent by design. And the objective is always to keep us the population. Because since the dawn of time, the power struggle, the same eternal struggle, has always been the people versus the power. And they get us to hate each other, the people,
mm,
by throwing racism in there, throwing sexism in there, like
mm.
creating unrest, chaos, disruption. So we get amongst each other, fighting each other about this and that, about stupid things, and they can control and manipulate us. The feminist movement, if you read End of Woman by Carrie Gress, she wrote that book going in as an apologist for feminism. She was going
Okay,
in
I must get that.
feminism.
That's
When
it.
what she discovered was how insidious feminism was. So the book she wrote, actually, instead of being in support of feminism, it exposes the seedy underbelly of it. Feminism was started by women that were psychotic and mentally insane. It didn't mean they didn't have good points and they didn't have grievances, because they did at that time. But the
Mm.
feminist movement was started and it was supported by men who
Yeah, of
were
course. Yeah, I've
praying.
seen that. I've seen that. I've seen that.
They were using the feminist movement to get free sex, to get women to like no longer reserve their virtue for marriage. And
Mm.
so these guys were preying on women. And then early on, that movement got hijacked by the Communist Party to use
Mm.
as a way to break down the traditional family. Because if they could break down the traditional family, it gave more power to the state, more
Stay,
control.
of course. Mm.
So this was the whole thing. And this is all documented. She has all the receipts in there. It's not like she's theorizing about this. So the feminist movement really was and is being used as a political tool. It was sold to us, hey, empowerment of women. We want equal rights. We want women to have the same opportunities as men, which in our day and age, that's what we all want. I have three daughters as well. I want my daughters, the sun rises and sets on my daughters. I want them to have any opportunity they want in
Yeah,
life. I
of
want them to
course.
go
That's
get
only
it for
natural as a human being.
yeah, and as a father, I will fight for them to be able to do the
Mm.
things that they really are passionate about, what they want to do. Of course, I will, because I want
Yeah, and
them
I
to
used to
have
volunteer for
everything.
Women's Aid, so I always drop that one in when they try to tarnish me with that brush. Mm.
Yeah, but what we're not on board for is this entire attack on on the traditional family, and the removal of femininity and masculinity, because that's really what this is about. It's not just an attack on
Yeah, this
masculinity; it's
gender
an
fluid
attack on
stuff.
women. Yeah,
That's
like
right. Mm.
women are told that they're weak and pathetic if they're feminine, and men are told they're
Mm.
toxic if they're masculine, and so it creates this
That's true.
really disconnected what should be the most powerful force in the universe or unit in our world is the family, is masculine energy and feminine energy coming together to complement each other and then raise the next generation. Well, that whole thing has been disrupted, and the feminist movement plays a huge role in being directly involved in breaking down the very fundamental building block of
Mm,
society.
which is self-defeating because obviously they won't survive either until they can make, a human being without an egg and a sperm. I said, what do you think will happen? Not only men will suffer, so will women.
Yeah, and who wants to be raising a family and trying to work at the same time? I had the unique perspective going through my first divorce with three kids, three little kids, that I was a single dad for a while. I had the kids 50% of the time, and
Mm,
I was working, paying for two households and taking care of three little kids at the same time as a single dad for years. And dude, that is a heavy burden to carry.
mm,
Like to try to be able to do all of that, and ultimately you can't do all of it well. You
you
shortchange
can't
your
do
job
it
to
well.
take care of kids. You should shortchange your kids to focus on your job. It's
Mm,
impossible. I don't care how adept you are, how good you are, how
mm.
powerful you think you are. Trying to do everything doesn't work. It
No, no, it
just
doesn't. It doesn't
doesn't work.
work. It doesn't work. Like you said, someone has to draw the short straw. It may not be like that all the time, but over the course of say 10, 15 years, something's gonna fall down or something's gonna get neglected. They know that. They know that. To be fair, I had a spell of doing that as well with my oldest son, and my youngest two, they live with me. So yeah, I've had that same experience
You
like
get it?
over a
Yeah.
long time. So, but a lot of that they said, oh, that's oddity. You're an exception, Sean. I said no, because in the UK. 485,000 single father households in the last census in 2021. So I said that was a jump of 85,000 to the one 10 years before that.
Hmm.
And they said from what I saw, it's the third fastest growing household in the UK. So I said,
Wow.
the very thing that you want to get us with is now affecting women as well, because there's certain women that I represent alienated from their children. When the dad's trying to play, the system said, oh, well, I've got residency. I've got control of them. So you know what? I'm going to give you a taste of what we've been struggling with for years. Yeah, as I was saying, with I know your travails with having to be a dad mostly responsible for the children and being a resident parent. It's definitely growing in the UK, and I'm guessing it must be growing in the US as well because I noticed is it Halle Berry moaning the other day, the actress, saying that the men are taking her to the cleaners over alimony and child support.
It's interesting, and I don't just want to be on a kick like talking badly just about women because there's a lot of things men need to do to step up. Let me
Mm,
put back on airplane mode. Um, but women universally feel entitled to alimony and child support and
mm,
whatever else, that they get out of the marriage. They'll
mm,
they'll they'll band together on that. And if you question, I've made some content on that and talked about it on Reels about how there's an injustice in the family court systems against men, and it outrages most women to hear that. Is my thing still going off? I just put it on airplane mode. All right. But the second those roles are reversed, the second the woman is on the hook for alimony or child support, universally you get criticism from all women about
yeah, of
how unfair
course.
it is.
Yeah, he's not macho. He's not a real man. Of course, it's the
Yeah,
hypocrisy. That's always the way to catch them in the hypocrisy.
is
Or
what's good for the goose isn't good for
good
the
for the
gander. How it goes. It's like, and
yeah,
I
that's the
and
same
that
one I say.
it,
That's the same one I say, Mr. Allred. The same thing I say.
it's 100% of the time you see this, man. Like, women need to be taken care of. They need alimony. They need child support. As soon as the woman is the one paying it, it's an injustice. And from the women's point of view, have you seen changing gears a little bit? Have you watched Inside the Manosphere? Did you watch that Netflix?
Yes, just last week. Is it the one with Louis Theroux? Yeah, I'm gonna do a panel talk about that next Sunday, the 19th. To be fair, I was gonna ask you to come on that actually, because you're actually in America, so you'd be more of authority to speak on that. Because obviously we're most of us are in England.
Oh, happy to jump on it. I thought it was really interesting. I just finished it last week as well. What was your takeaway?
To be fair, I think Louis Theroux is trying to make a career out of it because the manosphere, first came across that kind of terminology might be 2019, just before the lockdown. And then obviously, as the lockdown developed and we had to be at home, I saw a lot more male podcasters. Before that, I only really saw women doing that.
Hmm.
And that's when I started to hear terms like incel because I didn't know what that meant. I knew it was an incel when one lady on Twitter called me that when I said, look, we got to have equality of parental rights if you want to be having equality of working rights. And like,
Mhm.
no, 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 you must be an incel. I said, what's that mean? Then I looked it up, involuntary celibate. I said, huh? I said, how can that be? Said that I'm engaged and I've got three children, two different women. So how can I be involuntary celibate? What are you talking about? So they say, I don't care. Your mother should have aborted you. I bet your dad ain't around. So all this kind of, as they say, trolling.
Yeah, yeah.
So as that developed, I said, why is it now, after all these years, all of a sudden he's making a big documentary about it? Because it's commercially viable for him and
For
get
sure.
his name out there. So he's not really concerned about it, I don't think. I just think he's
No,
more.
no, not at all. I think the whole thing was, and I think the manosphere, the guys he was interviewing and following around, they're low-hanging fruit. They're easy targets. He wasn't
Easy
really
target,
getting into like the
exactly.
meat and potatoes of any of the issues that's going on, or even really discussing why those guys exist. The manosphere is a pushback to feminism. It's a natural knee-jerk reaction. It's
It's a
equivalent to
natural
it.
reaction.
It's toxic. It's not helpful. It's coming from a place of insecurity. In most cases, these guys are guys that have some sort of mother wound, father wound. They're angry at the world. They're angry at women. They're going to go get theirs, and that's the whole thing. I
Exactly.
thought what was interesting in that documentary is that there was there was like two paths being offered. I was putting myself in the position of like a 16-year-old boy. If I was a 16-year-old boy watching this,
Mhm.
what would I think? Let's say I don't have a father in my life that's taught me how to be a man, and I'm watching Inside the Manosphere, and you got Louis on one hand, and then you know, uh, you got HS
TikToky.
Tiki Taki, yeah,
Yeah,
TikTok.
he's from my
Yeah,
country.
yeah, he's British. You got him, and you had the clips from Andrew Tate, and I can't. You had Marion,
Myron Gaines, yeah, from Fish
Myron,
and
not
Fit.
Marion, Myron. Yeah, yeah, from
Miami,
Fish
straight
and
out of
Fit.
Miami. Always went to be go Miami, funny enough. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you had that whole group, and then you had Louis. And the interesting thing was, is on one hand, you had this toxic masculinity.
Mm.
Um, these guys that are very ego driven. It's all
Yeah.
about what they can get, how many women they can get, how much money they can get, how much they can flex and show off to the world. It's super. To me, it comes from a place of insecurity. It's
Yeah,
cringy.
definitely.
It's cringy. It's
Yeah.
hard to watch. Like listen to these guys. It makes sense logically. I get where that's coming from
Yeah,
because
of
I
course.
understand what the
The
other side is.
foundation, like you said, the ground that it's grown from, like you
Exactly.
said, the reaction to the radical feminism and the emasculation of men and seeing us as a spare wheel and a second class citizen. Of course. Mm.
So I'm not justifying it, but I understand where it's coming from, and I
Mm.
don't agree with it. But then on the other hand, you had Louis, who he epitomizes what I would call apologetic masculinity. So on one hand, you have grievance masculinity, which is the toxic
Mm.
masculinity. Angry at the world, I'm going to get mine, screw the world. It's all
Mm.
about me, 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 whatever I can take. I don't care how many people I screw. I don't know how many,
Mm.
women I take advantage of. Doesn't matter. It's all about me.
Mm.
And then you have this apologetic masculinity with Louis, who he inadvertently displayed, in my opinion, not unintentionally,
Mm.
on the documentary, where he's this sort of harmless, uh, take the mainstream narrative script, don't question anything, like if I'm a boy watching the apologetic masculinity or the grievance masculinity, I'm going to be drawn towards the grievance
Mm.
masculinity. If my choice is to look more like Louis or to look more like Andrew Tate,
Hey,
I'm going
of
to pick
course, yeah,
Andrew
of
Tate as
course.
a,
When
as
it
a
comes to
young boy
physique and how he
without
takes
any
care of
context.
himself, yeah, of course, and he can fight.
Absolutely, 100% time. It was like the representation of the alternative through Louis was just non-existent as far as being a compelling option for a young man to pick. And what he should have done, in my opinion, to make that more well-rounded and really understand what's going on, if he wasn't just trying to, take jabs and low-hanging fruit and make some money off
Mm.
of this, is to present an alternative form of masculinity.
Exactly, a one that was balanced, of course.
Balance, one that
I
takes
guess
on responsibility, one that's taking care of his family, but also a guy that doesn't put up with bullshit, a guy that can call out corruption in society, a guy that can call this bad and that bad and not be afraid to do that. Like that was non-existent. What I call the comprehensive man was non-existent in that
funny
documentary.
enough, you see, what's the guy from Louisiana?
I can't
The
remember
one
his
that
name.
was the steel magnate. I
Uh-huh.
think he tried to with him. He tried to do it because he's married, right, and he had children. But he said he had one-sided monogamy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and she knows about it. So I guess he was the one that he was trying to get in to say he's reasonable, but obviously demonizing him because said, look, you can do what you want to do, but yet your wife can't, you're saying. So that would undermine his position as being, look, I'm a steel magnate. I believe, how looking after your family, protecting your family. And then obviously he's backtracking though on the fidelity side. And then he's saying, I want to develop this and move it on where I make all the decisions and she has to basically do what she's told. So I said, look, he started off like that, but then the more he dug into him, then he said when he's going to protect his family, he didn't want the cameras there. But then later on in the show, he let the cameras come in after he said he doesn't want his daughter and wife to
Mhm.
be on screen. So he lost it for me. So I was hoping he would show the balance, but you're right. In the end, he just said, "Look, see, even when they try to be reasonable, they're still toxic." Mm.
Bingo. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
thought, that was a missed opportunity because I think you could have presented an alternative to the manosphere.
He should have interviewed you. He should have interviewed you.
But there's a lot of guys out there. I mean, I know I'm sure you're surrounded by them out there, yourself included. Good guys. They're doing their,
Yeah, of course, of
they're
course.
taking care of shit. They're keeping the world running. They're taking care
Mm.
of their families.
Yeah, of
And they're
course.
not, they're not like, they're not doormats either. They don't put up with bullshit. These are strong
Mm,
men that know how to manage a relationship with a woman, know how to respect her, but also to hold boundaries with her.
mm,
They're faithful to their wives. They're raising their
mm,
kids well. They go out of their front door every day in this world of entropy and fight hard to take care of their
mm,
families. Like, and a lot of these guys take good care of themselves, are in good shape. I know a lot of my buddies from the gym. These like one of my good buddies from the gym is a pastor. The guy is jacked. He shows up
mm,
every Sunday, he preaches, he does counseling with families and with youth. His life is dedicated to making people's lives better. He's a strong man. He's got a good marriage. He's got good kids. None of that was
They don't
presented.
they want to they don't want to illustrate that, you see, don't you know, as what do you do know, they don't want to illustrate that because obviously, so where's the controversy, what that won't really sell much, how many that doesn't rage bait clickbait people, so
Right, right.
that so that's and it's been like that, to be fair, since I was young. It's only I've got more aware of it as I've got older, but I always used to see that growing up. it, the papers used to say, controversy sells, sex sells, things
Mhm,
like this,
mhm.
corruption sells. So that's because he gets people like, how dare you? And then, like you said, distracted. Oh, we're raising your taxes. We're closing loopholes. We're affecting social mobility so working class can't get up here with us. There's too many of them around here. We can't have the serfs taking over the castle. So what we do, we put this in there. Say, look what they want to do thereafter, what you have. They want to take your wife, your children. You work hard, but we'll take away your job if you don't, and we'll make sure that you'll never get another job like this. So you'll be low and beholden to us. So yeah, and women won't be interested in you. So you'll just be seen as a spare wheel and a waste of space. So it affects your mental self-esteem. Yeah, it's by design, and he's like you said, he's part of the problem as well by being like that. Because
So I saw this illustrated in like a real life metaphor. One of my best friends, very successful guy, he owns a buffalo ranch up in Wyoming. It's about a 4 hour drive from my house. I'm in Utah. He's
okay,
got this huge ranch with 600 head of bison on this ranch. And I've gone up there a couple times. I've shot a couple of bison, harvested the meat, took the meat home to my family. We eat bison meat for dinner. It's
yeah.
delicious.
Mhm.
There's a connection with the food because I'm actually shooting
And
it
then
hard.
for yourself, yeah,
Well, yeah,
hunter gatherer, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it feels like there's a different connection with your food than when you buy it from the grocery store. So I have
Mm.
a greater love and gratitude for the animal that died so my family could eat. I know there's a lot of people that are going to disagree with that, but
Yeah,
I think
you will get that. But if there's a nuclear holocaust, we'd have to go back to hunter gathering.
exactly.
To be fair, I've
Um,
submitted my family to was it a wildling community where they show you how to forage and things. I said, yeah, I told my kids we need to do this because if there anything happen, there ain't no supermarket to go to. And if you can't forage and hunt, boy, we won't survive. We won't survive more than a few weeks.
I
So,
don't even think we're that far off from something like that being a real possibility. But the point of the metaphor was that on his buffalo ranch, they keep the bulls out of the main herd. So all
okay,
the big males, they separate them. And so most of the herd you see grazing up on the mountainside are all females and calves.
okay,
And the reason why he does that is because if the bulls are in the herd is way harder to manage. It's way
okay,
more difficult to move the females around, get them where they need them to go, because the females will follow the bull and the bull will protect them. And so
okay.
as a rancher, he has a much more difficult time managing his herd if he
Yeah,
doesn't
so that's
separate the
what
bulls.
separates them. Fair
And
enough.
that's the metaphor for where we're at right now when we
Now, of
say, oh,
course,
this
in
is
society.
deeper and it goes to like an established, like an intentional effort to demasculate men by the powers that be. I mean, I'm witnessing my buddy as a rancher do that naturally and instinctively as somebody who's trying to control the herd. That's exactly what's happening with us. If you can make men weak, if you can make them confused, if you can destroy their confidence, if you can get them divided against women, if you can get them not
Mm.
showing up to raise their family, how easy is the herd to manipulate and
Yeah, of
manage?
course, easy to control. Mm.
Bingo. That's what's going on. So all of these women that are proud feminists, what they don't realize is they're a pawn on somebody else's chessboard on a game they don't even realize being played.
Mm, mm. I hear that. I hear that. That makes sense, especially how the way society is in terms of politics and the legacy media. But we have to do better ourselves because, like you said, accountability, responsibility is obviously spread as they say the good news. That obviously you don't have to be like the Andrew Tates, the Jordan Petersons, the HSS, the Tiki Tokis, the Myron Gaines. You don't have to be like that, but we need to showcase more of the men that should be highlighted. That's why I've called this episode "Unheralded Heroes." I always have a certain amount of people that won't get much publicity, but they're doing great things in terms of the community. So I
Mm,
said, yeah, this is the kind of things that we should be doing. So I said, hopefully by me doing this Unheralded Heroes, other people say, you look, yeah, we need more positive archetypes of tonic masculinity, tonic femininity as well. Women that said, you know what, we know that there's troubles for men and we care about them. They're not just a resource and a tool to be used. We actually love and respect them. So we will help you as well. And look, you said yourself, you've got quite a few female followers that agree with you and highlight what you're doing, and I've got a few myself. So I'm hoping more of those women that are courageous have the fortitude to come and support what we're trying to do, and we showcase the kind of people that should be have the limelight and should be celebrated publicly. So it becomes the good role models that politicians always talk about. They want good role models so people can follow them. So there's better social cohesion. But it
mhm.
sounds like talking out both sides of a mouth. One side is saying this and one side saying that. And that's why, like you said, I think a lot of it is by design for nefarious reasons. Mm, definitely.
Amen. And the moral of the story, to your point, what you're saying is it's not here to feel sorry for ourselves as men or to
Mhm,
complain. It's you got to call out what's actually going on so you can understand the problem, so we can understand why where we're at, so we can start to correct things. And to me, this is a masculine issue. This is not a feminine issue. This isn't about going around trying to change women. That will happen automatically when we
mhm,
as men change ourselves. When we
mhm,
start stepping back into our masculine energy, when we start taking back our divine birthright, when we start getting our houses in order, and I'm talking about personally,
mhm,
getting a purpose, knowing why you're here, leveling up as a man, going out and getting after that, realizing that your value as a man is linked to your level of responsibility you can take
mhm,
for yourself and for others. That's what it means to be a good man. Like
mhm.
understanding that, stepping back into the leadership roles, protecting and providing. The women in this world will naturally start to follow that. They want it,
Of
they're
course.
asking
Of
for it.
course.
So the moral of the story is not to attack women, and it's not to complain about how the deck is stacked against men. It's
Mhm.
to call attention to it, but to call men up. Like men, we have to
So we
get our
can do it together as a collective. But I know, have you noticed though? We seem to separate, especially this is where we are, but fight, squabble, and then when we feel disrespected, instead of resolving it, we say, I'm not talking to you no more. Or I beat you up, so you can't talk to me, so I don't want to hear anything from you. And then people feel embarrassed, and then they separate. I've seen it with families, with friendship circles. And I said,
Mhm.
but you got to have some kind of perspective. If you're having silly squabbles over God knows what, I said, is that more important in a relationship, especially if you've known each other for years? If you get a new partner, why would you ostracize the men that you grew up with or the friends that you grew up with in case there's a divorce when you know there's a high probability of it? I was saying this as a teenager. But I notice a lot of people, it's only now in their 40s that said, well, you know what, Sean, you're right. But sometimes you have to have the experience to go through it. So I've been trying that for years, to be fair, Mr. Allred, for years. But not everyone has your kind of mindset. That's why I was intrigued when I saw what you were saying online, because I watched you for a few months before I approached you. I said, yeah, this man is very balanced. He's not like, macho man, and oh, women get in the kitchen and don't speak back. So it's a key thing why I wanted to get you on Unheralded Heroes because a lot of the time with the fact that you hunt and you're quite assertive and you're public speaking and courageous, a lot of people will try to tarnish you with that brush, like some of these archetypes we talked about. I said, no, you have to have this as a role model, an example to young men and boys. And you can't just have one shepherd either. There's got to be many across the world. So I said, without that, then how are you going to have the better, disciplined children, a more peaceful and just society? So because you can only have really peace if you're capable of, warring and aggression. Because people will say, what they're going to do? They can't do anything. It's like a dog that barks that has no teeth. It's not going
Mhm.
to do anything once they realize it's just a lot of hot air. So I said, you do need that. Just like when you go to war, said Keir Starmer, Trump, and relying on a predominantly male army military force to go out there and correct things or gather resources. So why is it okay when it's okay, but there's powers that be the establishment want to use those tactics, but domestically they say, no, how dare you use that? You're a criminal, you're aggressive, you're mentally delinquent, you're a psychopath. Said, how does that work? He said, you can't. He said, it's we need to showcase that more. So hopefully, going forward, would you be willing to come on panel episodes?
Oh yeah, bring me on, man. I'd be happy to do it. I think these conversations are important. I love the work you're doing, Sean.
Yeah, definitely. And we have quite a few female panelists as well. Some of them don't always agree with us, but what I like with these women, we can agree to disagree, and there's not no separation. Like, oh, I'm mad at you. I never talk to you again.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I like. So that's how I'm trying to get a panel of people like that consistently. So I said, if we do that, we can amplify the message. We get bigger and bigger. We can rival, the legacy media when it comes to influence and show real good examples, genuine examples of where it is to be fair and balanced with checks and balances in place. That if I err on wrongdoing or make a bad mistake, you can say, well, Sean, what are you doing there? That's not what we stand for. Or I say, Adam, come on, you know better than this. And we can kind of help each other when we fall down. Because obviously I'm not perfect. I don't know what man is. I've read Jesus was, but I've only read it. So it's thing. So said this is what we do. Said the checks and balances means we internally check each other and drive each other onto greater success. And I expect the women to do the same as well. And then we do it also together as a collective. And you got almost the perfect society then, and the best relationships.
No, you just hit the nail on the head. That's it. No, I'm here for it. I'm looking forward to it.
I messaged you. I sent you my WhatsApp number on your DMs. Are
Okay,
you
that sounds
on there?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, at least then I can update you live instead. Because sometimes I don't go on my Instagram for days. You see. So
Yeah,
see
same.
that message you sent me on March the 31st. I hadn't been on there since then.
I get it. Yeah, hit me up on WhatsApp. I'll even send you my number. You can just message me directly too, or hit me on WhatsApp. But yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
make it happen.
Thanks for coming on, Mr. Alvid.